I'm just finishing up. I plastered all these walls in an old stone cellar. I'm going to show you how I did it. Now today's job, see this old stone foundation on the outside, and then we're going to go in here on the inside and we're going to look at this old stone foundation right over here. You see it? It's made out of stone. Now people say to me, Mike, are these old stone foundations any good? They're probably a lot better than what they're putting in today. And they're not having any leaks over it because they just want it cleaned up. That's the only thing they want to do is clean up. And when they built these stone foundations, one stone on one side, one stone on the other, then they added on to the building, and you see it right there. There's an oil pipe that went there. There's an oil pipe that went there. They put block on here and they put this addition on some years later. But let's go outside and look at where those things were. See the old stone with the block? So I'm going to get these out of here. This out of here. Now for these outside holes, I'm getting a little white stucco mix. Just enough to patch the holes up. I want to do it today because it's going to rain tomorrow. When you're patching a hole, make it. I shoved a rock in there, a little water in there, shove it on. First thing I'm going to do today is sweep it all off, as much as I can get off of with the broom. And then I'm going to come back and wash it. I want to get all that stuff off like that first. So when I wash it, I'm not going to get mud. All this stuff out of here, get into there, get all that stuff off. Anything that's loose. That's what you want to do. You get everything out of here that's loose. You can take this stone and maybe build that up later. See what goes on there. All this stuff out. Over here, get all this stuff off. Everything that's laying there for years. Get it all off. Brush it all off. I'm going to tell you about these cellars. Nothing wrong with these cellars. People say block is good and this is good and the other thing is good. I don't buy that because all those castles and all those government buildings and them big churches in the Middle Ages, they're all built just like this with stone. Now when you're working with these old stone cellars, you just gotta, just like a dentist, get right down to the bad spot. No use going too far with it. If it's good, when it's falling apart, you leave it there. See, that's bad. That's good. Just like a dentist. That's pretty good. That's bad. And then you get down to where you want, brush it off. So after I get all the dust down, then I just clean the floor up real good, because next thing I'm going to do is wash it down. Now, all we're going to do is get the hose and wash it all down. Not going to go crazy with it. I don't want to cause a flood. Just want to wash it down. Just like that. Now you could, I'm washing it down. That's that lime. They used lime in here between the stones in the old days. Lime and sand. And it's okay. It holds it together, but it's not like today's Portland. So just wash the whole thing down. And just get a sponge and get all the loose water up from the floor so I'm not tracking all over it, if you know what I mean. So here's the mix I'm using. 2 buckets of masonry sand, play sand, whatever you want to call it, and 1 bucket of cement, 2 to 1. So out of that cement I'm using 3/4 of a bucket of Portland and 1/4 of a bucket of S-mortar. That's the mix I'm using. I'm very confident with it. So I throw in the 1 bucket of sand. I throw in the 1 bucket of cement. The other bucket of sand on top. And then for this job I go down to Concrete Company. I think it's $7 for a bag, $8. Put a little bit fiberglass. Don't have to, but I got some thin spots in there. Might help it to hold it together a little bit. So that's that. Sit up dry first. Add my water. That's it. Now the first thing I'm going to do is mix myself up some old school bonding agent. Get regular Portland cement, put it in a bucket, just like that. I add some water, like that. And I mix it into a paint. Doesn't have to be too thick, just thick enough to stick. Mix it up, that's all I do. Now here's the cement I mixed. You see how thick it is? That's about how thick you want to make it. Because what we're going to do, we're going to go over here and fill in these holes. And you can see, let me make sure. And you can see it goes pretty in far there. So what do? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to go around and fill all the holes in. Like I always say, you got to wet everything first. If you don't wet it, it's not going to stick. I'd like to have the holes down here, but I don't want to make a big mess. Remember that bonding agent I made, old school bonding agent? And get a paintbrush, paint it all around where it's going to go, and that's going to stick like glue. The best thing you do, you gotta wet it first, and you stick it. Now if you want to throw it in with your hands, throw it in with your hands. You don't have to be an expert mason to do this stuff. And then you want to get an old rock, like this, an old piece of brick or a rock. That's okay too. Shove it in. Fill them big holes in first, like that. If you want to do a little more, that's going to stick real dandy. Shove it again with your hands. Now, that's it. That's all you have to do to fix that hole up. I'm going to keep fixing these holes up down here, and then I'll show you what I do when I'm done. Now, because I've been doing this a while, I always throw it in like that as a mason. I just wanted to show you. You don't have to be a mason, you could use your hands. A lot of different ways to do a lot of different things. You see, I'm filling those holes in first. I just get a regular broom and I scratch it, because we're going to go over it with another coat tomorrow. See that? How that's working out? I was just thinking of a couple of comments people asked me, and one of them is, can you put the cement on when it's wet? Absolutely. Can't put it on if it's dry. I need to make a point about using your hands. Just sometimes I have to use my hands. I really want to get it in there. You know what I mean? Look at that. And actually with your hands, I mean, you got to wear a rubber glove, but you could smooth it off with your hands. It's no big deal. Take your time. Come back down in another half hour, see how it is, maybe smooth it out again. No big deal. You can always use your hands. Sometimes that's better. And right here, I got a big hole, so I just want to make it look a little better. Just going to get some stones, lay it in there like that. That's all. Like this. See that? You gotta make that square there. That's all you do with stones, is you just put them back. No big secret. This will work maybe. There. Then we like that. Pack it up. See, made my corner there, made a little corner. Here's where we're at with it. I just fill all the big holes in. I'm not worried, I'm just trying to get it flat. So when I put my last, coat of plaster or cement, whatever you want to call it, I'm good. So you could keep doing that. Come back the next day, put another coat. Come back the next day, keep hitting the spots and get it as flat as you want. This job though, we just want to clean it up, that's it. Now we're back the next day in the morning because it's too lazy to keep going. Stiffened up pretty good. Now we're going to put our second coat on it. Now the first thing I'm going to do is wet this down. Just like that. Want it wet. I'm going to get that old school bonding agent. Paint it right over the top of the cement, right over the top of the water, just like that. That's going to make that stick. They say, Mike, why don't you use that in stuff they sell at stores? Well, I've been doing this since the 1960s with my dad, and we never had a callback. So gotta be doing something right. Then, as soon as it's wet, right on top of it. That's going to flatten that out. Hopefully. Just like that. Continuing on, you got to keep it wet or dandy. Clean it with the fork. Then I'm using a regular plastic trowel. People ask me sometimes, well, why don't you use a Haduck? I'm a plaster guy, I'm a mason. You want to use your trowel to get in some crevices, you can do that too. And then, when it's still wet, just get the brush, go over it like that. That's going to kind of smooth it out, you see? And when we sponge it later, it's kind of ready to be sponged. See that? So we come back and check it. It's just, look at, put my fingerprints in it, if you can see that. It's a little soft. Just get a sponge. I ripped this out of my cousin's car seat. And then just real lightly go over it like that. And best advice I could give anybody is test everything. If you're going to do a job like this, start on a little part of the wall, see if it works before you get on the main part, and keep testing it. That's all you got to do. And see, real soft and getting rid of the holes. And then I'm going to come back, hit it again in about another hour. That's going to get rid of all those little holes, and it's going to look flat. Now I could keep going and going and going and keep flattening this out, making it perfect, but that's a lot more work, and that's not what they're paying me for. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these walls. I did a couple videos. One of them was early American stonework. See how they put these walls together. And the other one, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take you for a little tour up in this town that disappeared, where there's a couple foundations that was left over. And when I was up there in the 70s, there was still houses there. They caved in. But I just want you to see how they build these stone walls. There's nothing wrong with them. Just got to keep them up like this, and that's it. So let's go look at those old foundations. I'm up here where there used to be some houses. And back in the 1970s, I remember the house still being here, the wood anyway. It was caved in. You could see how big the trees grew. So this foundation has been here for maybe 100 years, I figure. And it's still pretty straight. But sometimes people say, well, old stone foundation is no good. But my experience, they're probably one of the best foundations you could ever have. The only problem is they didn't use strong cement. They used like a light mortar to fill in. And when they start falling apart, the only thing you have to do is put them back up. Now I'm inside this stone foundation. Don't forget we're in Pennsylvania. And you can see it was like a lime mix they used. And that's the only thing that made these stone walls fall apart. Right here, the weather is what makes it fall apart. You can see they even had a little plumbing here. So, there's nothing wrong with these stone walls. The only thing's pushing them here is because there's no heat under here and there's no weight on top of it. You can see there's some of the boards still left from the house. But I just want to make my point. There's nothing wrong with these stone walls. They're probably better than the stuff they put in today. Another thing is there was never a footer under it. You just dig the hole on the ground, lay the stone on top, and you're done. So I just want to put a little offshoot to my videos. I figured maybe by looking at it this way it makes sense. You can see how they did it, one stone on top of another stone. This was the window well, and that's it. Here's another example of another old foundation right here. You can see it's winter time, but you just put the rocks on top of rocks, and that's it. The only thing I did was plaster over it. You could see the old lime cement that was in there. Now it's toward the end of the job. I'm just rinsing the sponge out, just going over it, smoothing it out a little more. See, it's pretty hard now, and the longer you wait, the smoother you can get it. Some information about this. They built these cellars. They had to bring all this stone in with horse and wagon, and I knew a guy who used to do it. Of course, he's long time gone now. Back in the 70s, he was in his 90s, and he used to get the horse and wagon and deliver the stone. And I ended up with one of those wagons. I donated it to like a farm type of thing. But anyway, here's a picture of that wagon right there when I got it, and that's when I restored it. It used to cost more to build the cellar than it did the rest of the house. At that time, this old time was $1,500 to build a whole house. $750 was for the cellar, because they had to dig it by hand, bring all the stone in by horse and wagon, and then put it up. So cellar cost more than anything. Everybody, when I was a kid, used to live in the cellar because that's where the furnace was. So that's it. The only thing I'm going to do is come back tomorrow and see if I got any check marks, any shrink marks. I'm going to talk about one more thing. This is wire mesh, stucco wire mesh, which we use a lot up in Pennsylvania. Usually we use it over wood. Now people ask me, do you put it over stone or brick or block? Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to show you a picture of this stuff that fell off the wall. And I usually go out and I do jobs, and it's only good for 20-25 years. It falls apart. I'm not a fan of using it. They teach you to use it, but the only thing it does as far as I'm concerned is it creates a facade. You're not really getting into the wall. So you could use it. I usually don't use it, but that's what it looks like. It came from a job, and I have another video, a series of video on how I patch up or fix up a foundation. If you check them out, it's usually on the outside of block or stone foundations. It's basically the same techniques. So I hope you like the video. I try to show everybody what's really going on so that you really know how to look at it and how to approach it. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.